Welcome to the Unfolding You podcast. I'm Erin Smylie Walsh, and I'm thrilled to invite you on a transformative journey of self-discovery and faith. Welcome to another episode of the Unfolding You podcast with me, your host, Erin Smylie Walsh. Thanks so much for joining us. And we are now in the second pairing of our theme for the season. And today we're talking around the wilderness. And it's that perspective of God, of the in-between. You know, often we look at the wilderness and we look at times of struggle and times of loneliness and complete surrender as punishment, and not necessarily looking at it through the eyes of a classroom, where the Lord is taking those moments where He's molding us, He's preparing us, He's allowing us to nurture something and grow something that is going to be far greater when we go through that. A lot of times we don't know why we go through seasons in the wilderness. I know in my life, a lot of it has been in order to give more reliance on Him, but also to help others going through those seasons. And so for me, that just gives such perspective on the wilderness. I think I've been through many seasons of varied states of wilderness, but one that I can really recall being quite profound was right in the beginning of COVID. My husband and I were both in the wedding industry, and obviously when COVID hit, the entire wedding industry was shut down. And what we thought would be like a 2-3 week closing turned to months of no work. And I sat in that thinking, I don't know where we're going to get our income from, because no one was booking weddings. Nobody was paying balances of weddings because nobody actually knew the complexity of COVID at that time. And we were like, how are we going to make a living? And I'm very grateful that I have an ability to kick into problem-solving mode. But the month leading up to COVID, the Lord put an encounter in place for me with an individual that then later came to fruition as a full working opportunity, and which I started at the end of the March. And, we were able to keep our house. We were able to provide food on the table. The Lord sustained us in that season. And in that provision, it allowed me to nurture certain skills that I had thought I had lost, or that I thought were no longer relevant or of no value. And mostly because I thought I couldn't do it anymore. But the Lord then just again showed me in that space that He was using that as an element of preparation, firstly as sustenance, but then an element of preparation for what was then to come after that. And as difficult as that season was for me personally, the Lord's provision was far beyond that. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to shift our perspective on the wilderness. There's some scriptures that I want to really draw our attention to, and I'd encourage you to go and read Exodus 16 in its entirety, because it gives such an incredible understanding of the Israelites in the wilderness. But, Moses and Aaron, they freed them from slavery in Egypt. And the people were pining because they said that Moses had brought them into the desert in order to just die. And they would rather have stayed in Egypt as slaves where they were fed. And the Lord then said to Moses, and this is the verse I want to draw attention to, but I would really want to encourage you to go and read the whole passage, because it just gives the complexity and the understanding of the Lord's provision. But the Lord said to Moses, "The Lord will give you meat to eat in the evening and bread to satisfy you in the morning, for he has heard all your complaints against him." What have we done? Yes, your complaints are against the Lord, not against us. The people were saying to Moses and Aaron, "You've brought us to die." And the Lord told Moses, and Moses was then telling Aaron, this is what the Lord is going to do. And the reason the Lord is going to do it is to ensure that the people know he will care for them and that he is ultimately Lord. In Deuteronomy 8 verse 2, again, it's just this remembrance on provision, where he says, "Remember how the Lord your God led you through the wilderness for these 40 years, humbling you and testing you to prove your character and to find out whether or not you would obey his commands." And often and this is again, like, the wilderness is not necessarily to make you suffer. The wilderness is the Lord showing you his faithfulness towards you in those seasons. And how will we shift our perspective on that? Lastly, Hosea 2, verse 14. Again, I love the title of this, "The Lord's Love for Unfaithful Israel." "But then I will win her back once again. I will lead her into the desert and speak tenderly to her there." And the Lord, takes us into those spaces to just nurture us, often, not to punish us. Mentally, if we have this shift where we go from scarcity, fear, to manna, trust. Scarcity, fear, to manna, trust. And that is exactly what the Israelites encountered. They were like, we're going to die from starvation. And yet, that was their fear, that they would die from starvation, from not having enough. Where the Lord goes, I'm going to provide you everything you need to sustain you in the day. I'm going to give you bread in the morning and meat at night. You do not need to store anything. And later in that chapter, the Lord says, on the sixth day, you will collect, and then you will have enough. I will multiply that for the next day, where it was the Sabbath. But how often do we operate out of fear and not out of trusting in the Lord's provision? Signs that we're going through a season of the desert, the wilderness. It could mean slowness. Things aren't moving as quickly as we anticipated them to. There's a season of hiddenness. Well, no one's seeing what I'm doing. And there's this element of dependence where you need to depend on someone beyond who you are, beyond your capabilities, beyond your ability to provide. Those are wilderness seasons. And I love the hiddenness of spaces, because if we are able to nurture something that if no one sees what it is we do, it's okay, because the Lord will. The Lord does. And again, he puts us into that season of hiddenness, that season where we go, you take it all, and we'll respond out of complete and utter surrender to you. There are 3 lessons that we can really take from these different passages that we've read. The first one is that God feeds us. It's the manna. God will sustain us. He will give us what we need, and he will nurture us in that moment. The secondly is he leads us. You know, the Lord led the Israelites through the clouds and the fire. He will show us the way. He will guide us in those moments where we need to be. And then he forms us in humility, where we go, but you have provided all our needs. You have sustained us. You have built out elements within me where you're nurturing that. And if we can look at the wilderness through those 3 lenses, our perspective shifts drastically. A challenge I want to give you today is to maybe start a manna journal and look at all the elements that the Lord has provided for you today. Not tomorrow, but today. Elements of gratitude, elements of opportunity, provision, sustenance. And start writing those down, because the minute we write things down and we can actually start reflecting back, we start seeing the Lord's hand over a magnitude of elements that we face in our day-to-day lives. I want to encourage you to perhaps fast one comfort that numbs us to God's provision. That's a tough one. It could be social media. Looking at what others have versus looking at you and what you are being sustained. A lot of times we look at others and we go, oh, but the Lord hasn't actually, He's not working the way He's working with them. And we often look at it and go, well, we're in a position now where the Lord is not being given the way to work that He wants to work in our lives. But we're trying to control the element of provision through Him. So let's do a table talk. Where am I grumbling, but God is growing? Because often it's in the wrestle that we actually see the glimmers of the Lord. But unless we put the grumbling down, we don't necessarily see the growth that the Lord is actually leading in that space. And I really want to pray that you meet the Lord in the in-between. That you meet Him in that space where It goes, Lord, you're here with me. Now let me see what you need me to work on and be in that space. And the Lord will show his way for you. So I want to encourage you today, if it feels like a desert, maybe you are in the Lord's classroom. And what are you going to take from this season? So if this has encouraged you today, I really want to encourage you to share it with a friend that may need this. Share your perspective on in the comments, or send me a DM or an email. All our contact information is on our various platforms. But really want to encourage you to lean in to where you're at, and the Lord will make a way there. So until next time, friends, goodbye.